Rhythm and blues, a key to racial integration? Well, not quite. Today we're discussing how R&B may actually have been a revolutionary force in shaping American culture and music as we know it.
Oh, that's an intriguing perspective. How did R&B manage to have such a profound impact?
Well, it all started in the 1940s when R&B emerged from African American communities across the United States. It was this vibrant blend of jazz, gospel, and blues that quickly became its own distinct genre. What's fascinating is how it evolved from being marketed primarily to African American audiences to becoming a mainstream phenomenon.
Hmm, that's interesting. So, how did that transition happen? Was there a specific moment or artist that pushed R&B into the mainstream?
It was more of a gradual process. But if we had to pinpoint a pivotal moment, it might be when Billboard magazine replaced the term race music with rhythm and blues in 1949. This change, spearheaded by Jerry Wexler, helped legitimize the genre. Then in the 1950s and 60s, we saw R&B bands develop a distinctive sound with piano, guitars, bass, drums, and often a saxophone.
Right. And that sound became the foundation for so much of popular music. It's amazing to think about how influential those early R&B artists were.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about the music. R&B became a powerful vehicle for expressing the African American experience. Songs tackled everything from love and relationships to social issues and the quest for equality. Think about Sam Cooke's A Change Is Gonna Come or James Brown's Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. These weren't just catchy tunes, they were anthems for the civil rights movement.
That's such an important point. R&B wasn't just entertainment, it was a form of social commentary. How did this aspect of R&B evolve as we moved into later decades?
Well, as we hit the 1970s, rhythm and blues had become this umbrella term covering a wide range of African American popular music styles. We saw the rise of legendary labels like Motown and Stax, which were instrumental in bringing R&B to mainstream audiences. Motown, founded by Berry Gordy in Detroit, gave us icons like the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, and Stevie Wonder. Meanwhile, Stax Records in Memphis was pumping out hits from Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, and many others.
Oh yeah, those labels were huge in shaping the sound of R&B, and they really helped bridge the gap between black and white audiences, didn't they?
Exactly. And that brings us to an interesting statistic. By 1969, Motown was responsible for 75% of all releases that made it to Billboard's top 10 R&B chart. That's a staggering figure when you think about it. It shows just how dominant and influential these labels were in shaping the sound of popular music.
Wow, that's incredible. So, how did R&B continue to evolve as we moved into the 80s and 90s?
That's when things really started to change. We saw the emergence of what's often called contemporary R&B. It combined elements of traditional R&B with pop, soul, funk, and hip hop. Artists like Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, and Janet Jackson were at the forefront of this new sound. And let's not forget about the new Jack Swing movement, which blended R&B vocals with hip hop beats.
Right. Well, that's when R&B really started to dominate the charts, wasn't it?
You're absolutely right. In fact, by 2004, 80% of the songs that topped the R&B charts were also at the top of the Hot 100. That period was the all-time peak for R&B and hip hop on the Billboard Hot 100 and on Top 40 radio. It just goes to show how R&B had become the dominant force in popular music.
That's fascinating. And it's not just in the US, right? R&B has had a global impact too.
Definitely. R&B has influenced music scenes around the world. British R&B, for example, played a huge role in the development of rock music in the UK. Bands like the Rolling Stones and the Animals were heavily influenced by American R&B artists. And today, we're seeing artists from various countries putting their own spin on the R&B sound.
It's really amazing how R&B has managed to stay relevant for so long. What do you think is the secret to its longevity?
Well, I think it comes down to R&B's ability to adapt and incorporate new influences while still maintaining its core identity. It's constantly reinventing itself. Whether we're talking about the raw, bluesy sounds of early R&B or the polished productions of contemporary R&B, there's always a focus on conveying deep emotion through the vocals and creating compelling, often danceable rhythms.
That makes a lot of sense. So, what do you think the future holds for R&B?
Hmm, that's a great question. I think we'll continue to see R&B pushing boundaries and fusing with other genres. We're already seeing a return to more organic live instrumentation from artists like Anderson .Paak and Leon Bridges. At the same time, there's a lot of experimentation with electronic and alternative R&B from artists like The Weeknd and FKA Twigs. And the fusion with hip hop is still going strong with the whole trap soul movement.
It sounds like R&B is expanding in multiple directions at once. That's pretty exciting.
It really is. And I think that diversity is a strength for the genre. It allows R&B to appeal to a wide range of listeners and keeps it from becoming stagnant. As we wrap up, I think the key takeaway is that R&B is more than just a genre of music. It's a living, breathing art form that continues to reflect and shape our culture. Whether you're a longtime fan or just discovering the genre, there's always something new to appreciate in R&B.
Well said. This has been such an enlightening discussion about the history and impact of R&B. Any final thoughts before we close out?
I think the most exciting thing about R&B is that its story is still being written. As we've seen throughout its history, R&B has the power to not just reflect culture, but to shape it. So as we look to the future, I'm eager to see how R&B will continue to evolve and what new voices will emerge to push the genre forward. It's a reminder that music isn't just entertainment. It's a powerful force for change and expression in our society.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for this fascinating discussion, and thanks to our listeners for joining us on this musical journey. Until next time, keep the rhythm in your soul and the blues in your heart.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you on the next episode of The Music Time Machine, where we'll continue to explore the stories behind the music that moves us.